All right, welcome to your practicum overview. So I'm going to use the student handbook and go through the portions that we need to discuss for the practicum piece. So when you first started the program, you should have received the student handbook upon admission after meeting with the MLT interview and things. Just in case you lost it or for some reason didn't get one, I'm going to send this one to you after we are done. So I will be skipping the portions that doesn't really apply to our practicum part right now that we are going to discuss. So I'm just going to kind of skim through and I'm just going to get to the points where I need. So the first thing that I'm going to come to in this is going to be something called essential functions. So again, these are things that you should be able to do in order to be successful in the field, in order to work and be employable in the field of medical lab. So you should be able to discriminate all colors. You should be able to freely maneuver around a lab space. You have to be able to sit, stand, and walk. You should be able to pick up smaller utensils or tools or do things with equipment. You can communicate in English, things of that nature. So the listing is here for essential functions. So again, just pointing back out those items. For immunizations, we have been gathering all your immunizations, as you know. So these should be pretty much gathered, but this is again the listing of what is required, and there will be another list toward the bottom. So we will keep going. Background checks, you've also done your background checks and been cleared for that. So we have those on hand. So all right, let's skip through to the next portion that we need. Academic integrity policy. You are enrolled in two courses, the practicum and the capstone course. As always, academic integrity still applies. There will still be assignments, things like that. So we are still going to follow that policy. Okay, moving along past that. All right, conduct, dress, appearance, and behaviors. This is just speaking to, especially in the practicum setting, that you are always wearing the correct clothing, which is scrubs. Either your site dictates a certain color or your site won't, but regardless, you'll be in clean scrubs, closed-toed shoes. Your appearance will be neat and cleanly. And then, you know, your behavior basically is that you're showing up, you're doing the duties asked of you, you know, with no attitude or anything like that. So this is kind of just in that regard. All right. Attendance policy. We have a practicum one that we'll get to on that, so we'll hang on to that. As far as safety goes in the practicum site, they will provide you with your lab coat. They'll provide you with gloves. It is your responsibility, of course, to wear the lab coat and the gloves and to wash your hands and practice safe protocol. So moving on. All right, so here's the part where we get to more of the clinical externship and capstone. So it is a 10-week, 360-hour experience. You must get a minimum of 360 hours in order to even pass the class. So that is where we will have timesheets that will track that. So I'll show you a timesheet toward the end of this handbook and what it will look like. So the eligibility parts, in order to go to the practicum, of course, first and foremost, you have to pass all of your MLT core classes with the 73% or higher in order to go. That includes being able to pass the final examination with the 73% or higher. So that is to determine that you can go once you pass those. The other part of the eligibility is that we have gotten all of your immunizations, that you have CPR card up to date, that you have passed your drug screen, and that you've passed your, of course, your background checks. So we need to gather all of this information as well to be able to go out to the clinical site. If you do not have the immunizations and screenings gathered and passed, you do not get to go. So placement, we've kind of dealt with placement already by this point. If you have any questions on that, please let me know. Online course expectations. As I said, there are two classes that you are enrolled in. You are expected to be logging in there and doing homework in there every week, just like normal classes. The classes are set up to help you review all of the content that we've learned at this point. And the goal is at the end that you're going to be as prepared for boards that we can do as you can be. So 2 weeks will be spent focusing on phlebotomy, lab operations, immunology, 2 weeks on chemistry, urinalysis, 2 weeks on heme and coag, 2 weeks on micro, and 2 weeks on blood bank. So you can see it's all of the content. So within those 2 weeks, there's lots of little quizzes and review stuff and assignments to do. There will also be some rotation exams. Rotation exams are going to be on the even weeks, so weeks 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And these are exams in each of those areas that I just mentioned that you must pass with a 73% or higher again. So your site, your clinical site, will give you the test. They will be sent the passwords and they will proctor you on this exam in those even weeks when it comes time. So you don't actually have to come back to the campus to do any of those tests. Those will be done at your clinical site. So of course, 73% or higher on each of those rotation exams. If you should not pass one of them, you will do a retake. If you do not get through the retake, then we'll have to talk about the next steps after that. All right, so that's the rotation exams in there. Otherwise, the rest of the material is required. You'll also be putting in your timesheets into drop boxes in the course. There will be proctor forms that your site will fill out when they do proctor those exams. Those will also be put into the course to verify that, yes, they have signed that and that they've been the ones to officially proctor you through that. So again, just log in and do all the assignments every week in both classes. Okay, moving along. Again, clinical externship hours. It discusses it's a minimum of 360. They're typically daytime hours. Your site will set your schedule. So the biggest thing about your hours is they are not paid. It is very essential that these are unpaid. It is a mandate from our accreditation that you are never to be paid for internship hours. If you should ever happen to work at the clinical site that you are going to while you're there for practicum, you have to be very careful to make sure that those hours get separated, that anything you do for clinical practicum experience is not paid and separated from a paid time. All right, requirements to pass the externship in the classes. Essentially, again, getting the 360 hours, getting a 73% or higher on your class for all of your assignments and things like that, passing each and every single one of those rotation exams that the site will give you. The site will also evaluate your lab skills, just kind of like, you know, what you do hands-on every day in that experience. So after blood bank, they'll fill out an evaluation of how your blood bank stuff went, your heme, your micro, all that kind of thing. And they're signing it, plus you are signing it. And of course, you will upload that evaluation into the course as part of your grade. So you must get a 73% or higher on each of those evaluations. In the very end, in week 11, there will be what we call a post-assessment test. This is the final, as I always call it. Basically, it will cover every topic there was in MLT, which is why we review so much in these courses. And you must pass that post-assessment with a 73% or higher as well. So that post-assessment exam is typically done on Fridays of week 11. If you do not pass it the first time, you do have one retake option for that before you graduate in order to pass and graduate. So weeks 1 through 10, again, are going to be at your site. Week 11 is our capstone week. That is the week that you have to participate in webinars led by different instructors. Again, more review kind of. And part of your grade, there will be a spot in the grade book for capstone participation and attendance. So when you log into these webinars, you put your name in so that we can track that, yes, you're attending it as you should be, and you should be actively participating in those. And you do get quite a few points dedicated to that time spent in capstone, listening Monday through Thursday to all those different review webinars. And then, of course, Friday, you'll take that final exam. All right. So that is kind of all the stuff required in order to pass the externship. So going on to failing. So the biggest thing here is dismissal. So if you were to ever get dismissed from a site because of your behavior, because of poor attendance or HIPAA violations or anything like that, we take that extremely seriously. You would fail the course and we would have to go into a learning plan scenario, possibly / dismissal from the program at some point if nothing is going to work. So, you know, just act nicely. Be there on time when you're supposed to be, with good behavior, good attitude, willing to learn, willing to listen, you know, follow HIPAA, which is a very big thing. So just don't get dismissed from the site because we will back that site up on that. Now, if you were dismissed from a site because say you were there attending the site and they became extremely short-staffed, say they had a few people quit all of a sudden, and they don't have anybody to fill that, and they felt like the learning experience wasn't going to be good, and they said, you know what, we can't finish. That's not your fault. That's something different, and you won't fail due to that. That's a completely different scenario. All right. As far as attendance goes, it discusses here you are not allowed to miss, we hope that you never even miss 3, but more than 3 shifts in the quarter. If you miss 3 or more, you're at high risk of failing the course, just due to attendance. And that would be a horrible reason to fail a course, is just attendance. So if you miss those 3 shifts or more, you could fail. Now, again, the goal is always to get 360 minimum hours. You should easily get that if you're attending. You might miss a shift if you're extremely sick or car accident or something really does happen, which we never hope to happen. If that should happen though, where you do decide that you need to miss, your first, number one, you call that site immediately and let them know that you're not going to be able to be there. And hopefully you're calling them ahead of your shift, not after your shift was supposed to start. You should be calling them ahead. Second, you notify me that you're not going to be at the site and the reason why as well. So both of us should always be notified of that circumstance so that we can track that. All right, so that is the attendance policy. Now, boards. In week 11, during that capstone week, there will be a presentation about ASCP, which is where you take your board exam. So there'll be some info given on that. We will sign you up and do your online application with you during that week 11 capstone week. So we will sign you up for boards. We will pay for that first test. And then they basically will process your application, and they will give you a 90-day, so a 3-month window period of when you can take that test or when you want to pick a date to take your exam after you graduate. If for some reason you fail the first test for the boards, or you decide not to go and take it, you forfeit it, which I hope you never do. It is up to you after that point to pay for the test on your own, which it's an over $200 exam. It's not cheap. So anything on that, we will discuss more on boards in week 11. All right, contact info is here, of course. These are just some clinical sites we've worked with in the past or present. Course descriptions. I'm going to scroll through all of this stuff. HIPAA. All right, at your site, at any patient is always got a right to privacy, as we all should be aware of. So that is taken very seriously. We never want a student to violate HIPAA. You will immediately be dismissed if that were to happen. So make sure that you, of course, never put anything in writing, never reveal anything to even your closest family member. Even if you say don't tell, I mean, things get out, so don't ever talk about it. The other thing is, don't even talk about huge scenarios that might happen, because we live in a small community. So if there was a significant trauma or gunshots, victims, things, just keep it to yourself. I mean, yes, the news may cover it eventually and stuff, but you don't need to discuss it. You don't need to be the one bringing it up. So that is HIPAA. The other big thing which that rolls into is social media. So of course, with that being said, nothing ever gets posted onto social media. And that's also going to include your thoughts and feelings about your clinical site that you are at. It could be that while you're there, you decide, this hospital is not for me. I really dislike this place. These techs are mean. Everybody's crabby. That's fine if you feel that way, but don't put it into writing on a platform for people to see. If the site were to see that, they could be, well, you don't need to be here then if you don't care for us. It's a very unprofessional thing to do. It reflects poorly on you, and then it reflects poorly on me, and it reflects poorly on this program. So please keep all your thoughts to yourself. Do not put anything in writing. You know, you could have a bad day and come and say to your significant other or friend, you know, this tech is just kind of crabby and really mean all the time. That's okay to vent a little bit about somebody there is giving you a hard time, but don't put it in writing on a platform. All right, so that is social media. Invasive procedures was regarding phlebotomy stuff, so we don't have to worry about that. And we can skip through that. This is the form that I will be having you guys sign. So as you can see, I've been kind of going through every item on here. So when we sign it, you can check off each item. If I missed something, please let me know. If you do have further questions, let me know. All right, continuing on. This page is talking about the official responsibilities of different members of the program. Your responsibilities are listed here. You, of course, always treat your practicum like a job interview. If you're going to be late or absent, tells you what to do, all that kind of thing, what we expect from you. Here is an example of that timesheet that I referenced. So this is what you'll be turning in every Friday. You will turn this in. There will be a Dropbox in the course. So you should be completing this, and then the site has to sign it to validate that it is true, that those are really your hours, so that we can track that. So this is here. I'll send you this whole handbook, of course, but there is this form in the course. So when that course opens up in week 1, and I believe this is found in the practicum course, go to course materials, and there should be a link for these practicum timesheets. Print them out, one for every week, and they're going to fill them out with the site. Now, you have to scan it to get it back in to put in that Dropbox. If you don't have access to a scanner, you can take a picture of it and put the picture in the Dropbox, as long as I can read the information on here and see that it's filled out and that it's signed. So that's just the biggest part of it. So a little bit on the timesheet. A lot of students ask about lunch times, lunch breaks. You don't have to worry about that. Put the start time that you started the shift, the end time that you ended the shift. I don't need to know your lunch break. I hope you get a lunch break, but I don't need to worry about a 30-minute lunch break. I just want you there at the site doing your hours as you need to. Of course, if you're absent, put the reason for absence. The communication form here, that is something for me. I do visit with the lab managers, ensure everything is going well with you, and I hope to come and see each and every one of you at some point during your 10-week rotation. This tally sheet is in here. I do ask that you have this printed and with you every day, and because you're going to tally the tests that you are doing in each area. So you can see different things listed here. If it has a number by it in parentheses, that means that it is the minimum amount that is required of tests to be run. So for example, ABORH, so blood typing essentially. We hope that you're doing at least 20 blood types or more in that time period that you're in blood bank, which it should be easy to get that if you're in there 8 hours a day for 2 weeks. That's a lot of time to type people's blood. So the goal is to at least get 20 or more, 5 DATs, 10 screens, and so on. So we would want you to have more, but again, you just keep track and put the tally marks as you do them so that you can see where you're at with meeting those requirements. Now, not everything has a number, and that's just because not every place does the same stuff. Some sites are not going to do elutions, and some sites will. If you are at a site that does an elution and you do one, make a mark. Yeah, there's no minimum requirement, but still love to see if you did one. If you don't, just ignore it. So have this with you and fill it out as you go through the areas and testing that you're doing. And you're going to submit this at the very end. So of course you can write anything down here that is not in the chart itself. So at the very end, in week 11, in that capstone week, when you come to take the final exam, which is typically that Friday, we will ask that you bring in a bunch of paperwork. And you need to bring the paperwork in order to be approved to take the exam to pass. So the paperwork that we're going to require, yes, you're submitting all this online, but we ask that you keep anything that was filled out and signed by the site to bring to us as well, because we are mandated to keep paper copies of certain things. So your evaluation forms, your timesheets, this tally sheets, and the proctor forms that are signed by the site, all of those should be kept and brought to me in week 11 when you come for your final test. So just a note on that. Otherwise, I think that should be it. Again, if I should have missed something or if you do have further questions, please let me know, especially when we go to sign these sheets. That's a great time to discuss anything else that we had. When the course opens up, the courses will open up, of course, week 1. Make sure you log in right away so you can kind of get an idea of what you should be doing for assignments. One note on your assignments in those courses. When you're at your clinical site, your goal is to be doing what the clinical site asks you to do in those departments. You are not to be doing homework. Your homework is done on your own time at night, at home, or on the weekends. So unless the site says to you, hey, we're really busy, why don't you go ahead and do some homework? Then you can for a little bit, but otherwise do not think that you get to do your homework at the site. You are there to be learning and alongside that tech on the bench. So just keep that in mind. Your homework and all those assignments in there are to be completed on your own time. All right, so that is it. We will see each other soon to sign this. Thank you.